Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now in today's video we're going to talk about MORA knives, more specifically the MORA Companion, the MORA Companion, MORA Companion, MORA Companion, and the MORA Companion. Now if you are familiar with MORA knives, you are probably familiar with the MORA Companion, but did you know there are a ton of different MORA Companion models out there? Now in my possession here, I do happen to have 5 of the models. There's at least 5, I think definitely 6 and probably more. The MORA Companion, definitely a knife that most knife enthusiasts should have. It's a fantastic knife. I am absolutely a huge fan, and in today's video we are going to look at these in detail. And when I say detail, I mean close up detail. A little bit of a different take on a video here today, and I think you're gonna like it. But with that said, I have a whole bunch to do and a whole bunch to share with you, and if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to get into, do me a favor, stay tuned. Now before we get too far, I would like to say thank you very much to the people at MORA who did provide these for review. Now when I say the MORA Companion in great detail, well, first and foremost, let's talk about the models. This one here, this is the MORA Companion Carbon, the MORA Companion Stainless, the Carbon Heavy Duty, the Spark, and the Rescue SRT Safety. Now, on top of that, I'm also going to look at a couple of MORA Companions that I have had in my personal collection for a while. My wife's, this is her Companion in stainless. And then, well, if you've gone back into Outer Limitless sort of history, you've seen me racking on this MORA Companion Carbon. Unfortunately, this did fail in a hard use test, but it was a great hard use test. It taught me a ton about this knife, the overall capabilities and its limitations. And there's no doubt that the MORA Companion, even for its given thin stock, is definitely capable of doing some substantial use. And that's why people love these. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a look under the microscope, get really close up on all of the details so I can talk you through this and so you can understand a little bit about some of the subtleties in the grinds, in the overall sort of construction between the carbon, between the stainless, and some of the other iterations we have here today. And so now, as we take a look at these MORA Companions in great detail, this is my original carbon MORA. Now this went through an extreme torture test. If you go back on my channel, you will see the details. But taking a look at this after extreme amount of use, you can see that fine edge all the way down on that Scandi grind. Actually still in really great shape, all things considered. I've usually tuned this up pretty much on a ceramic rod and a strop, and you can see it's held up very well. Now I did apply a forced patina to this, which you can see a little bit of scratches, but it still looks pretty good. And take a look at this here. This is the grain structure on the section of blade that has snapped. You can see it is generally very tight. Now there are some areas that look potentially like inclusions. I don't think it is. I think it's just, you know, wear and things from it laying around and maybe a little bit of oil and stuff like that. I don't think you're seeing any voids. I don't think you're seeing any open voids or any pock marks or anything like that. So the grain structure in the steel, very nice all the way down to the tip. Here you can see my wife's MORA Companion Stainless. This has more than extensive use. This has literally been used on a daily basis for a few years at this point. There are some scratches and a little bit of fine detail, but you can see the engraving here, very nice. And actually the interesting thing, when you really look close, all the way down on the edge, you will see what looks like a vertical line. And then on top of that, some diagonal lines, and then some horizontal lines. It's really interesting when you look at these MORAs up close at the actual quality of the steel, at the actual manufacturing, and the type of patterns you get on the edges of the blade. Now keep in mind, again, this is the stainless. Look at the edge. You can see some areas where I've sharpened it against a ceramic rod, but for the most part, very, very interesting. Almost micro serrations, but not quite. It's really just the grind pattern. Looking at the spine here, you can see the edge of the spine rounded off. Now pay close attention, this will come into play a little bit later on as we look at the spark. But for the most part, Moras have a rounded off spine, very comfortable on the thumb and nothing that's going to tear your thumb up. This here is a brand new Mora Companion in carbon. So compared to the one I'd beaten up, let's take a look at a brand new version. And as we take a closer look, look how smooth and perfect the edge is. This is legitimate, a zero grind. Like very, very much a zero grind. You can see the actual sort of, the actual grind lines going horizontal, but all the way down to that very fine polished edge. Very, very fine, literally zero ground. And your diagonal grind lines, literally going all the way to the edge. Now again, that's going to be very interesting. Where you look at some of the other models, it does not look the same. Other models have almost a micro bevel. Now here, as you look at the side of the stock, you can see the different grind lines and the way that it was manufactured. Really cool. But now getting a little bit heavier duty, the Mora Companion heavy duty in carbon. Now I would like to see this also in a stainless version just for a comparison, but the carbon version, let's get a little bit closer into some detail. Now as you look at this, it is definitely going to be a little bit beefier than the standard Companion, but the grind is what catches me. You can see the heavy vertical lines here, and then a micro bevel. People say Moras are zero ground. Yes, it really is, but it's really not. This is what caught me by surprise. A very fine and extremely refined micro bevel all the way down, and so precise. I don't know how this is done, but whatever it is, it's extremely, extremely precise. And as we look at the tip, a little bit more stout than the standard Companion, and you can see just a little bit of grime here on the blade. That's not damage, just a little bit of grime from the sheath, not a big deal. Just really, really amazing. And looking at the spine again, this is not squared off. This is one place I'd love to see a square spine on the heavy Companion, but generally very nice. Now moving forward to a brand new stainless version. This is the standard Companion in stainless. And here's we take a look at it in the packaging. Very nice packaging with your standard packaging. You don't always get this if you buy Moras on the third-party market or even on something like, say, for example, Amazon. But looking closer at the quality of the steel, beautiful. This sheath is very well done. The polymer from Mora, very nicely fit. But as we get this under the microscope, again, those vertical lines, and looking all the way down at the zero grind, almost a micro bevel. Again, very, very subtle. Now, again, I am going to say you definitely cannot call this a micro bevel, but I think in essence, they must do a final pass just on that final relief edge, just to get a real tight and refined grind. Again, you see the sort of angled grind, you see the vertical grind, and then all the way down on the edge, super tight and refined. And then working our way up on the steel, on the stock, on the side of the blade, you can see a little bit of a pattern. Now moving forward here, this is the Spark. The Spark is a really interesting blade. I really, really like this. I think it is an amazing option coming from Mora. The interesting thing is it has an embedded ferro rod built right into the handle. Really cool. And as we take a look, this is in a stainless version. The interesting thing as we look here, again, those vertical lines. Now, a little bit of a different pattern. Notice each one of these blades is ground a different way. But down on that edge, that noticeable, almost micro bevel. The straight vertical lines, no 45-degree angled grind on this particular steel. This is all very much vertical with that fine, tight little micro bevel. Now, notice this spine. This spine you can see clearly squared off and squared off hard. This is going to do a great job scraping, great job striking a ferro rod. And as I rotate here, you can see very, very sharp. And if we actually compare this, you'll see shortly against the standard spine, much, much different. So the fact that the Spark is squared off, I love. And as I mentioned, look at the difference. Going back to the standard stainless here, you can see just rounded off, rounded on those corners, nowhere near as sharp. That gives you a great visual understanding what someone says when they say a squared off spine. Well, there you go. It's not sharp enough to cut you, but at the same time, it's going to do a wonderful job for different bushcraft tasks, scraping fuzz, debarking limbs, different things like that, scraping on some fat wood, scraping on a ferro rod, and all the way down to that tip. Look, squared off all the way down for some precision. So the MORA Companion Spark, really, really cool. I like it. Now, last but not least, we're going to take a look at this MORA SRT safety. The interesting thing about the safety, it's more of, and I would say sort of a rescue knife. It is intended on being dulled out on the tip, so you don't accidentally puncture things that you don't want to. And this also has serrations. Now, the interesting thing, if you look, these are what I would call right-hand serrations, and we're looking at the back side of them. So as you look up close, extremely precise, very well done. They have a little bit of sort of a wave to them and an interesting shape, sawed out. Definitely for doing some good cutting of rope, cutting of different materials, cutting through seat belts and things like that. And you can see that almost 45-degree grind mark on the bevel. Now, there is one tooth that had this weird little sort of snag. I wonder if that's an artifact from how this is actually punched out. But as we take a look and working our way up towards the tip, you will notice no micro bevel on this. Like the other models that have that little micro bevel, this one does not. So again, I reiterate the fact that each and every MORA is actually ground a slightly different way, a different manufacturing process, different grinds, different patterns, just really cool. And as we look at the tip, blunted out completely, that's not going to cause any sort of worry that you're going to stab the wrong thing. And as we get onto the spine, again, completely rounded out. I feel like this one might be a little more rounded than the other models. Very, very pronounced rounding on the top of the spine. Just really, really cool. Now, a few last details worth noting. Here we are going to take a close-up look at the actual handle. So here is the rubberized over-molded grip. That's that rubber that you grab onto that just feels so good in your hands. That rubber does a great job in giving you solid grip even when wet. And as you take a look at the difference here of the rubber versus the polymer, there is a transition, and they both have some pattern. Looking up close, you can see they're sort of modeled in the same kind of way, but very nicely done from MORA. The overmolded grip up against the polymer, just really nicely done. If you have not held the MORA Companion, you have to. And last but not least, we're going to take a quick up-close look at the Polymer Sheath, just showing you the way that it's all molded out. Really, really neat. I enjoy this look very much. It just kind of shows the detail, how they've manufactured the sheath. And as you take a look up close, you can see MORA stamped into the side of the Polymer Sheath. Very, very nicely done from the people at MORA. I am definitely impressed. So, all right, guys, there you have it. A look at these MORAs in great detail. Very, very close up, and I think really interesting and just kind of compelling. I really enjoy that you can see these so close up and in that detail. And now that I look a little bit closer on some of these details, really, really fine on those very fine edges with my eyes, I can almost see, or at least I feel like I can see some of the things that we were seeing under the microscope. Really, really cool. And I do have some takeaways, some wishes and things that I just think would work out a little bit better for a couple of these models. And I think, and maybe I'm wrong, that they don't quite exist. Like, for example, let's compare the Spark versus the Companion HD, so the heavy duty model. I would love for this HD model to have that awesome squared off spine like you have on the Spark. I think it would just be fantastic for those bushcraft tasks, the scraping tasks, ripping on the ferro rod, getting a little bit of bark process, some fuzz to start your fire. I think that would work out, and especially where the HD just has that like really nice refined edge. This thing is just going to be an absolute performer. And then I'm really very happy with seeing the up close edge, like say for example on the Companion Carbon, just how perfect and just buttery smooth that edge is all the way down, that fine edge all the way down. just so perfect. And even more so, just really interesting looking at the broken one. The fact that you can actually see the grain structure and for the most part really looking really good, really tight, and just how clean that break is. It was just really, really neat. And last but not least, just getting a close-up look at these serrations. Just kind of funny, some of the little, and they're not inconsistencies, it's just the little details that you see in there. And actually, now that I'm looking up close, you can actually see that tiny little tick mark that we saw on one of these. It's just really cool. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. A slightly different look, and not really so much a review, just more intrigue and interest, looking at the construction, the quality, the grinds, the fine details, the patterns on the blade. Really, really neat. And so to the people at Mora, thank you very much. And for the rest of you, if you like this content, do me a favor, take a look at my Outer Limitless 2 channel, which is more on the tactical and firearm side of things. At this point, that channel is growing quickly, so if you like what you see here on Outer Limitless, do me a favor and check me out on Outer Limitless 2. So all right, guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.